Today we find ourselves in Graceland Cemetery on the north side of Chicago. This cemetery was founded in 1861, quite close actually to the establishment of the city of Chicago itself in 1831. The city, like New York, was experiencing great growth, and as the population moved north, what had been burial land was suddenly needed for residential and commercial purposes. And so this cemetery was established as an outpost for burials in that era. In the northern part of the cemetery itself is this lovely little spot. And surrounding this spot, we find buried any number of the luminaries in business and finance in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In fact, if you could name all of and knew something of the history of the people buried here, you'd know a good deal about the history of Chicago at that time. Hidden in the trees straight across from us, in all its Grecian glory, is the resting place of Potter, Palmer, and Mrs. Palmer. They were big in department stores. He was a partner of Marshall Field, who's also buried here. And he created the Palmer House Hotel that still stands in all its glory in the Loop. Beyond the Palmers, we see William Goodman, who made a fortune in lumber. And then the three white columns for William Kimball, who built pianos and organs. Behind these trees, we can't really see the substantial tombs of Martin Ryerson, also big in lumber, Peter Schoenhofer, a brewer, and we're looking at the back of the tomb of George Pullman, who made a fortune in railroads and created the thing that has been since called the Pullman car. Also buried here, we'll be coming up on the gravestone in just a moment, though you won't be able to see it here. Just beyond us is Marshall Field and family. Then Philip Armour of the meatpacking world, Joseph Medill, the owner of the publisher of the Chicago Tribune. On the island just to the left of that fountain is Daniel Burnham, one of the great architects of Chicago in that era. Also in the cemetery behind us is John Root. And again, ahead of us, Cyrus McCormick, who made a fortune in agricultural equipment and so on. Of course, it's all very lovely. But in the loveliness, we might ask ourselves about who some of these people were. Some of them were clearly robber barons. George Pullman was so worried that people would desecrate his grave that he had himself encased in various levels of cement and railroad ties and steel bars and so on. Philip Armour was certainly a robber baron. And so these beautiful tombstones might remind us of Jesus' statement in Matthew 23, "Woe to you, you scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but inside you are full of dead man's bones and every kind of filth." So yes, there are good deeds and there are bad deeds. There are some people who commit themselves to no more than making money at what human expense does not concern them. And yet recently we've had the instance of John James Audubon, who created a stunning set of prints of birds in North America in the 1830s. And yet we now have found out and come to grips with the reality that he was also a slaveholder. So sometimes it's a little bit of one and a little bit of the other. Another question we might ask ourselves is, where are these people now? We think of death, and Catholic theology tends to talk about heaven and hell as though they're places, and they're places other than the place we find ourselves in now. Sort of as though you go to heaven and you're in Monte Carlo, or you go to hell and you're in Hackensack, New Jersey. This is wrong thinking. God doesn't exist in simply our three dimensions. God exists in dimensions beyond these three, the fourth, the fifth, the eighth, the ninth dimensions. What does it mean to be in any of those dimensions? Well, we have no idea. We talk about God being with us, and yet God being distant. Well, if the dead are with God, in any sense of the word, and God is with us, then the dead must be with us. And so we can rightly remember them. We can rightly feel them close at hand. We can rightly call upon them to intercede for us. And yet they are existing, living on some other dimension. And we must conclude, I think, that if this dimension is as lovely as this scene we're seeing here, then surely the good who have gone on to the next life experience a goodness that somehow is reflected in this goodness that we see. So perhaps today is a day for us to reflect on our histories, the people we know, the people we do not know, the robber barons of our own era, the terrible atrocities that are committed by human beings in our own era, and just pray for them. Thank God for the lives that we have, for the beauty that we can enjoy, and always ask the Lord how it is that we can help to be part of a creation of a better world, to bring His kingdom into real being in this world, and so to live with Him in the next.